Good morning, fellow traders. This is Doug Campbell with Right Way Options, and this is the morning market prep video for Friday, January 10th, 2025. Well, I hope everyone had a great day off. Market being closed due to the memorial for President Jimmy Carter. And we have an interesting day shaping up today with some notable earnings this morning. The futures were sharply lower when they opened last night, but in the true fashion that we have seen here over the last 5 days, we're pumping them back up. Dow futures just recently went into the green. They have tipped just a tiny bit lower. So let's take a look at what happened overnight. First off, if we take a look at Asian markets had a rough night, and that was one of the reasons we were looking lower. Asian markets across the board were lower. Shanghai was kind of leading the way, down a 1.33%. as they made a decision to pull back on bond activity because they're kind of in short supply apparently at the moment. Hong Kong fell 0.92%. India was down. South Korea was down. The Nikkei down 1.05%. Australia also down. European markets are trying to shake off a little bit of bad news out of the UK. As their borrowing costs rise and the pound sterling it has fallen to its lowest level in a year. Some real concerns about sticky inflation and things going on over there in the UK. But that being said, the DAX right now is up 0.37%, the FTSE down 0.28%. and the CAC is up 0.41%. If we take a look at U.S. futures this morning, well, we have been bouncing around here quite a bit, but mostly on the build to the upside. Dow futures right now up 9 points. S&P 500 down 9 points. S&P 500 futures down $6.50, and the Nasdaq futures down 24 at this second. If we take a look at oil this morning, oil on the rebound and strongly on the rebound this morning. There is some concern about the cold temperatures across the country and also across Europe, really putting some demand concerns here into oil. And you can see we've got XLE moving higher sharply this morning, with oil futures at the moment up 24 cents. $2.57 at 76.50 a barrel. Brent crude is also rising sharply at 79.22 a barrel, and natural gas is rising as well, with UNG pushing to the upside here in a nice pop right now, up 16 cents. If we take a look at cryptos this morning, well, those cryptos trying to rebound here today from some pretty substantial selling. Right now, Bitcoin up $3,190 a coin, 3.48%. The Ether is up $119, almost $120 a coin, up 3.75%. So really bouncing up there strongly in those, which is interesting because if we look at the US dollar, and I usually jump to UUP, but UUP is not really reflecting what's actually going on in the dollar. So I brought up another chart here today, and US dollar continuing to zoom on higher here. As you can see right now, US dollar futures are at 109.18, up another 24 cents. We haven't quite made it to the all-time high here, this recent high. in the US dollar, but the dollar continues to strengthen substantially here today. One of the reasons is those bonds are not easing up or giving us any break, really. The 2-year bond is at 4.29%. That's only 1/10 lower than we saw earlier this week. The 10-year bond is at 4.70. Those 30-year bonds continuing to move up at 4.94%. So continuing to add pressure, probably a little bit of worry about the economic data here this morning. If we take a look at gold futures here this morning, gold moving higher. We've got gold up right now $17.80 an ounce in the futures, pushing to the upside, which is very strange to see the dollar strengthening as much as it is and continuing to see gold and silver holding up. But silver futures this morning are also up. We are currently at, 21 cents up in silver futures at 31.22 a barrel. Not a barrel, but an ounce. So keep an eye on that. Copper, platinum, and palladium all higher this morning. Take a look at palladium getting that pump. So what does all that mean for today? Well, how about we settle in? Let's buckle up. Let's get ready for the Friday edition of the Morning Market Prep video. Good morning once again, everyone, and thank you so much for being here. I very much appreciate it. Let's take a look at these index charts, see if we can figure out how we might want to approach the market for today. Remember, we want to look at the charts for what they are, not for what we want them to be. Well, we still have this nasty head and shoulders topping pattern showing up here in the chart, but what we do continue to see is we continue to see that the market is trying desperately really to hold on to this support. So far we're sliding out from underneath that downtrend in here. We're trying to hold, and what I see is the possibility is that ever so slightly, a little higher low right there, and if we can get some bullish push in here, that certainly looks like a possibility to relieve some of the selling pressure. So if those bulls do find that inspiration, let's see if they can break this resistance right here and start moving up into the top of those last couple of big black candles. See if we can push through there, and then maybe we can start to really get some relief here in the market. But if those bears were to find inspiration today in the data, well, we can also see it wouldn't be too tough to look back down here and retest this low or recent support level in the chart. And if those bears really get inspired, we could fall off the edge of that cliff really easily. And I would suggest if that occurs, we're probably coming back down into this area of price support in the chart, and that would really confirm that head and shoulders top. If we look at our SPY, kind of a confusing chart as we continue to chop around. We've got lower highs in here suggesting the downtrend is in play, but so far we haven't been able to make lower lows. We actually held this double bottom, and you can see right in here, right at this point in time, we're trying to hold just an ever so slightly higher low in here on the SPY as well. So if those bulls find inspiration here, well, pushing on through, we're going to have to kind of get back up through that little area of resistance and about 50% of that big black candle, and then I think we have that chance we could push back up here and retest this downtrend and see if we can push through the top of that big candle. There's a lot of work for it to do there. We're going to need some good data today maybe to provide that inspiration. If the bears were to find inspiration here today, well, once again, we might be pushing back down to test this area of support. Breaking down below there, we're looking at testing this double bottom area here in the chart. And if we were to fall through that area, I would suggest that next area lower could be as low as this in the chart, so watch that carefully. Now, if we take a look at our QQQ, we've got a very similar situation here on the QQQ. We know big tech is the driving force for the market, and we are really heavily piled into the QQQ, so be careful here. If the selling does start, I would expect there to be a lot of folks running for the door all at the same time. But here, once again, we have that ever so slight hope of a higher low in here, and that possibility that we could catch a little bit more relief here in the market, pushing back up through this resistance, maybe getting through the top of that white candle right there, and then we might be pushing back up here to retest this downtrend, see if we can pop through there and maybe even challenge that big black candle in a full-on reversal. We'll see if we've got the energy to do that today as we move closer and closer into these uncertainties of the market. Now, of course, if we see any bearish activity come in today, well, a retest maybe down in here looks like a possibility, and if that low were to break, well, I'm going to suggest that we would follow this through, confirm the downtrend, and then, of course, test these next levels of price support lower. And if we look at our Russell, poor IWM, struggling here quite a bit. We still have this hope that we're going to hold in here in that little teeny tiny higher low. So if the bulls can find inspiration here, maybe a push up through this resistance, and we'll start working on recovering this evening star type pattern up here to see if we can push back up, test that resistance in the chart, and of course this trend break that's been holding as resistance, and then of course our downside trend would be right above that for those bears to have to push through. Bulls to have to push through. If the bears find inspiration, well, I would suggest wouldn't take much, and we could be down here retesting these lows, and then of course failing below there, well, we're going to start looking out over here for those next areas of price support in the chart for the Russell to be tested. Let's take a look at our VIX here today. Now, our VIX has been holding this little bit of a higher low here in the chart, so we'll want to keep an eye on that. But on Wednesday, they pulled that back quite a bit after breaking out up here. So perhaps if those bulls can continue to find that inspiration, maybe we can see this drift right on back down here toward this trend here in the chart. Of course, breaking down below there would really start to see some relief in the pressure in the market. Fortunately, our bonds right now are a real problem here for that potentially occurring. And if the bears were to find inspiration, well, we can see right up here where we get this real fuzzy top, we can see where the sellers are. If we were to break through up here, this is going to raise some concern in the market and probably raise a little bit of fear as we approach that 20 handle in the VIX. Now, if we take a look at our T20s, our T21-22 indicator probably gives us our best hope of a relief rally. We need a little bit of relief here in the market if we can get some breadth, that is. And if we can see, as you can see, we got these little higher lows in here, little modest upside trend, while at the same time we're moving in a downside trend here in T21-22. So if those bulls can find inspiration here, well, we certainly have a big opening upside opportunity in here for those bulls to push into if they can find that inspiration and breadth. If the bears, however, find inspiration, we have also opened a little bit of open door for a bit more of a push to the downside. It's really going to depend on how this economic data is seen this morning. And if we take a look at our T2108, well, our T2108 closing on Wednesday, a little bit lower. We're just not getting any momentum in the market here. So the percentage of stocks above the 40-day, right around here, about 22.75%. 80% of them just struggling in here to hold up. And you could see if those bulls can find inspiration, we need to break through up here and start working up to challenge some of these resistance levels of the chart. And of course, if the bears were to find inspiration, breaking down below here, you can see we can go lower here in T2108. And our T2107 also struggling in here. You can see on Wednesday closing near that support here in the chart. So if those bears were to find any more inspiration in here, falling down below, we've got about 43% of our stocks holding above their 200-day, but you can see we can get much lower here in T2107. So watch that area. If those bears break down through here, we could see some hard selling. If the bulls can find some inspiration here in the market, well, we can see we've got to start breaking through some of these peaks, coming back up in here to test some resistance in the chart and get us back up there toward that 50% area. If we take a look at T2101, which continues to be our major problem here in the market, the breadth of the market continues to remain extremely weak. This is very, very common as we are in the blackout period. We're waiting for the beginning of earnings season here. So keep an eye on that here. Obviously, very, very weak. If we continue to see that weakness in breadth, well, it's going to be really difficult for the market to move forward or even move down too much. We could just end up chopping. And as I had suggested a week ago, really good chance we could end up in a very narrow range chop all the way into that next round of earnings, which begins next Wednesday with those big bank reports. Let's take a look at our earnings calendar, our economic calendar here for today. And one of the things we're going to be waiting on, and this is the employment situation number today. They're looking for 157,000 here in the consensus of non-farm payroll, so keep an eye on that. Now that is significantly lower than the 227, but that would probably also show a little bit of bullishness to the market because we're getting that easing here on those pressures. Now, if you remember, the job openings report really shot back up, bringing those bears back in. If we're to see a major decline in this, that could be a problem for the market, so watch that carefully. Unemployment rate expected to stay the same at 4.2. We see private payrolls expected to decline to 130 from 194. Manufacturing payrolls 10,000 down from 22,000 on the last read. Average hourly earnings, this is a little bit of a problem for the market, is earnings seem to be falling. We've got from a 0.4 to a 0.3, but the year over year earnings, they're suggesting that stays flat. So keep a close eye on those numbers this morning. That could be the market moving report. And then remember, after that, we've got a consumer sentiment, and they are suggesting that the consumer sentiment is improving. We'll see on that. 74.5 versus a 74.0, so watch that closely. Baker Hughes rig count and a Fed balance sheet here this afternoon. If we were to take a look at our earnings calendar here for today, well, our earnings, we've got some notables here today to be paying attention to. We've already heard from some of these this morning, like Delta Airlines beating estimates and getting a nice bullish move here to the upside, probably adding some help and assistance to this bullish pump that we've got going into the pre-market, so keep an eye on that. We're also going to hear from Walgreens here this morning. Walgreens getting a little bit of a boost here, but we'll see if it can get out of this basing pattern in here before I get really too excited on it. I have placed a price alert watching it, but yeah, watch that closely. We're also going to hear from Constellation Brands. STZ, boy, they have been hated here for some time, and it looks like a little bit of a push lower here so far this morning. NEOG will be reporting this morning. Looks like we got a little pullback maybe happening there first part of the morning. We've got SNX that will be reporting, and Telray will also be reporting today. It looks like we're looking a little lower there. After the bell, we have one notable here for today. WDFC, the WD-40 company, will be keeping an eye on that. They will be reporting after the bell today. It's the only notable for after the bell today. And then remember, we're going to be building up next week for the midweek earnings reports coming from some of the major banks. So keep an eye on that, the official kickoff of this quarter's earnings. Let's take a look at some stocks that could be setting up for today. But before we do that, everyone, if this is the first time you've seen these videos, if you could please click that subscribe button on YouTube. Also click that bell icon when it pops up so you'll be notified every time I post a video. And if you find these videos to be useful, do me that favor, click those thumbs up buttons, leave a brief comment. That helps the channel to grow. Thank you so much for everyone who does take the time to do that. I truly appreciate it. Let's take a look at a few stocks that could be setting up. And remember, everyone, these are not recommendations to buy or sell any security. You need to do your own due diligence. Be very careful in this market. And remember, we have all of this uncertainty of a debt ceiling just lingering about mid-month here. We're going to be having to potentially deal with that. We've got an inauguration coming on the 20th. We've got the beginning of earnings season beginning on the 15th. There is a lot for the market to chew on here. And of course, on the 20th, we're looking at probably a lot of tariffs being handed out and some major changes coming to the government. And one of the things the market doesn't like is it doesn't like uncertainty. So don't be too surprised if we can't really get a whole lot of momentum going here in the market while we're waiting on some of these data points to give us some clues of direction. Now, let's take a look at some of these stocks that could be setting up. And remember, everyone, these are not recommendations to buy or sell any security. Do your own due diligence and be very careful here in the market. We've got Ralph Lauren looking pretty good in here. You can see my initial alert. We've popped up, still just kind of consolidating in a bullish resting pattern up here. So I would watch for that inspiration anytime in here for Ralph Lauren to push on through to the upside. Ulta Beauty looked like that had a chance of going the other day. Really big pop, but it turned into a pop and drop. Now breaking down below some support in here. So what I'm going to have to start doing here on Ulta Beauty is any rally back in here, if it struggles with that resistance in the chart, I'm going to have to start watching it for a short unless it can push back through that resistance and prove to hold up here. So watch that carefully in Ulta. Edwards Lifescience in here, as you can see, holding in a bullish pattern here, trying to hold up, but we also have that little bit of a hint of a head and shoulders top that could be forming in here. So what we need to see is this little higher low in here. Find that bullish inspiration and really start pushing on through and reattacking this high resistance here in the chart. So watch that on Edward Lifescience. TTWO is something I was watching here for that potential break. We broke this downtrend in here, pushed through, but boy, lost it all at once and pushed right back down here to this price support where we did find some buyers. So watch this carefully. I do think this has that potential to go either direction. We could smack our head into this resistance right here and see those bears come in. But if the bulls were to find inspiration, enough inspiration, we might push back through that resistance and then once again be setting up for that breakthrough to the upside. Remember, TTWO is coming out with a new game that is expected to sell really well. Now, if we take a look at AMD here this morning, AMD continuing to struggle. This is one of those reasons why I show you that pattern over and over again. When we break through some resistance in the chart and we break a downtrend, the first thing that we want to be doing, not chasing this, and that is waiting to see if we can hold a higher low, and that shows us the upside trend. Well, unfortunately, what we see here in AMD is a complete rejection of that rally. We're rejecting this area up here, and this morning AMD is getting a downgrade here in the market, so watch that carefully. I think there is a possibility that we could see this move on through and then take out these lows here in the chart. But if we take a look at old Google's still holding up pretty well, rallied up once again. We ended up with kind of a double top up here, as you can see in that chart, but we're backing off and trying to hold this higher low. So if we can hold in here, look for that next opportunity. We need a little bit of bullishness coming into the market. See if we can push on through in that chart. Same thing for NVIDIA. NVIDIA had this big old pop and drop. We broke out to a new high. Fell hard here all at once, coming back in here to this price support. But the good news is we're still holding in here, and we're very, very close in here around that trend. So if we need just maybe a little more rest in here, if we can hold that area, still look for that opportunity to the upside. But don't be too surprised if those bears were to find inspiration. If we were to start to break this down, that could raise some concerns in the market and really start moving that NASDAQ lower. So watch that carefully here if NVIDIA happens to fall off of that little edge right there. Let's take a look at some other places in the market. Roku has been holding up nicely after breaking through this downtrend here in the chart. So pushing up, holding in this support area of the chart. If this can continue to find that bullish inspiration in here, we might slide out here toward this trend, but then look for that next opportunity there in Roku. One thing I gotta say is our defensive sector or consumer staple stocks have just been beat up, just pushing down hard. We're coming into some new areas of price support here, however, so watch that carefully. I did see right at the end of the day on Wednesday a lot of hammer patterns starting to come up in that defensive sector, and maybe we'll start breaking, pushing back up. And usually when fear creeps up in the market like it is, we see defensive sector stocks pick up. It's that rotation. We'll see institutions beginning to rotate out of the high flyers in the market and rotate into defensive sector where they can get dividend yields and a little bit of a hedging effect. So watch that carefully if this starts picking up. If we take a look at UPS here, old UPS has made a little bit of a rally. You can see a little bit of a double bottom formation in here. The trick is we got to break through this resistance here, and of course this downtrend in the chart. Watch that carefully. If we can put in a higher low up here someplace, then we might start seeing UPS resume to the upside. But if those bears were to find any inspiration here, you could easily see that possibility that could move on lower here in the chart. Take a look at Juniper, JNPR, looking pretty darn solid and very bullish here, continuing to push to the upside. Fortunately, we're coming into a pretty big area of price resistance up there, as you can see, but let's keep a close eye on that. Juniper's looking good in here, continues to show bullishness, and every reason to believe that could continue to move right on higher here in the chart. AMAT is another one that I think everyone should start paying attention to, breaking through this downtrend. And notice that we are pulling back here just a little bit, little rest. But if we can get that bullishness to come here in the market, maybe we're going to make that uptrend occur. Keep in mind the current trend would be back over here, but a little bit of a rest in here and get some bullishness coming in the market on a little bit of relief. You might see AMD start pushing back up. Take a look at Lululemon. We really like our stretchy pants here, and those stretchy pants looking good, pushing through the downtrend here. Little resting pullback here in the market, seeing some bulls coming in there this morning. Look for that opportunity potentially to move to the upside as well. So with that, everyone, hey, I want to wish you all a fantastic day. I want to wish you great results in your trading. Thank you so much for being here today. Hope everyone has a great Friday. I'll see you right back here bright and early Monday morning. Take care, everyone.